Clash of the Classics.
Hey everyone, that's right, it's time for Clash of the Classics. I'm Donnie.
And I'm Chris.
Hey man, it's great to have you guys along. Welcome to another episode of Horsepower for an Hour. Now here's the thing, we say this each and every week. If you're new to the show, maybe this is your first time, you might be just kind of happening upon us by accident. Well, hey man, we welcome you in. Thanks for tuning us in. You're going to find every week we roll the clock back. We pit two classic models against one another. Then we look at exterior styling. We take a look at powertrain stuff. When we vote here in the studio on the car that we like best. And as always, we welcome you to let us know which car you like. Head on over to our website, horsepoweronline.com, or just leave us a message right here on our YouTube channel, and we'll be sure to get back with you. These battles are fueled by the largest automatic transmission network in the world. You know who they are, folks. It's the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association, or simply the ATRA. Today, Chris, is going to be a lot of fun. Showdowns between the 1962 Dodge Dart 413 and the 1962 Ford Galaxie 406. I was excited about this battle because 62 is the year that I came into being. So it's kind of a fun year for me. Always been kind of partial to 1962. I want to start with that Dart 413. Now here's the thing. While its time in the limelight may have been short-lived, it was the Max Wedge 413 that, at least in my opinion, really put the Mopar muscle car in the big leagues. The engine was first released, I think it was back in 1959 for some of Chrysler's bigger platforms, but then in 61, a lot of our older listeners might remember, Chrysler made a brilliant decision to put it into their smaller Dodge, and then beyond that, the Plymouth models. In 61, the 413 produced 375 horsepower. The only problem was there were plenty of 400 or more horsepower Chevys, Pontiacs, and Fords cruising around the streets in the local neighborhoods. So in the spring of 62, Chrysler, again, brilliant decision, made a few internal changes that brought the power up to 420 horsepower. And listen to this, a whopping 470 pound-feet of torque. That was when the engine was retitled the Max Wedge. Really cool car. Probably not the best looking ride we've ever seen, but I like what Chrysler or Plymouth was doing back in these days.
Yeah, you think for all this redesign they would have taken another look at the exterior, but apparently that was just lost on them. But I will say, engine's great, interior's great, wouldn't be caught dead in it.
It's so ugly, it's cool. It's a stepchild, but it's I don't know, there's something kind of uniquely charming about it.
I guess, but I mean, if it was in that, remember that Disney movie Cars?
Oh, yeah.
It's got the front end, dirk-a-dur. And so I don't know, I wouldn't be stoked driving it.
Sitting up on top of the intake manifold were a couple Carter 4-barrel carburetors, and I said that right, a couple of them. The exhaust consisted of a couple 3-inch headers on each side. They kind of swept up along the side of the engine, and they did that so that they could clear the front suspension. I remember the first time I saw this exhaust design. I was a much younger man. I was impressed then. I'm still impressed now. The car is probably, as we said a moment ago, the ugliest vehicle ever produced, but I don't know. Again, maybe that's what makes it so cool. And I mean it, this thing is so ugly, folks. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, this thing would make a freight train take a dirt road. There is no doubt about it. The transmission options were either a floor-shifted manual trans or the TorqueFlite 727 Performance Automatic. And when it comes to transmissions, many of our ATRA listeners will agree with this. The TorqueFlite, definitely king of the road, one of the sturdiest, most dependable designs, in my opinion, ever conceived of. Unit performs so well. Listen to this. Chrysler used this transmission for more than 40 years. In fact, probably more than 45 years.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
All the way through 2009 model year trucks, Chrysler used the exact, and I mean exact same design in their 48 RE units. And that thing, talk about exceptional durability. This is definitely the car, or definitely the transmission. But the Dart 413 was sold as a performance package, ranged from about $545 to $645, depending on the level of tune and then which transmission you chose. In 62, Chrysler got the ultimate seal of approval when Motor Trend released this statement. Check this. This is a quote. "Dollar for dollar, the Max Wedge Dart offers more performance than any other factory car assembled in America," end quote. That right there was one heck of an endorsement. One of the most common descriptions of a muscle car is you stuff the biggest engine you can into the smallest car that you offer. And the Dart was fully 200 pounds lighter than the Chevy Bel Air with more raw horsepower. So the Dart 413 with that max wedge turning 14 seconds in the quarter mile at over 100 miles an hour. Now, if you do the quick math on this, the power to weight ratio adds up to about 8 pounds per horsepower. Original MSRP was about $2,900. Today, a real good number 2 car would be worth about $19,000. So, I mean, I like the car though.
It's definitely a lot cooler when you consider the performance. It kind of gives it somewhat of a facelift, although not cosmetically, just as far as your opinion goes. I do love the dual carb, especially with the air filters on it. It just looks like a tape deck. It's awesome.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like it is a little hipster in the sense of like it's ironically cool, but it's mostly cool on the quarter mile stretch. So what you would do to sell this car to me,
keep the hood open.
Is you take the hood off of it, smash the front end away. Put some 275s on the back, some small ones on the front, 225s or whatever, in a wheelie bar, and just make that thing go down the track. And now it's like, all right, because I always like the sleepers are the ones that you don't expect, the ones that get you when you're not looking. And so this one could be that. Stock off the floor, I'm not super psyched on it, though.
All right, before I go any further, I want to talk about the largest automatic transmission network on the planet. They are the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. ATRA makes our Clash of the Classics possible. No one knows transmissions better than ATRA. With a member network stretching from coast to coast, there is no better place to be when your car is experiencing transmission troubles than an authorized service provider from ATRA. Head on over to atra.com to find a service provider member near you. All right, dude, let's talk about that Galaxie 406. Again, sticking in the year 1962, going back to 62, Ford took the old reliable 390. A lot of our listeners will remember that old engine, that 390 V8. They stretched it into the all-new 406. They called it the Thunderbird 406, although it was only available in the Galaxie. It was a $390 option at the time, and as we'll see in a few minutes, in fact, stay tuned here because this was an option well worth the money. We'll talk more about that in a moment. The package also included heavy-duty suspension and what was called fade-resistant drum brakes. And that's an odd statement to me because I don't know how you would make that. But in any event, we'll talk about that in another episode. The wheel sizes were increased from 14 inches to 15 inches to kind of provide, I guess, better stable handling. Fuel was sent to the cylinders via a tri-power setup consisting of 3, set it right, folks, 3 two-barrel carburetors. They called it the six-pack. That was producing about 405 horsepower. Engine was running 11.5 to 1 compression ratio with a low restriction dual exhaust. 0 to 60 happened in a little over 6 seconds. And here's the thing. Car went through the quarter mile at about 15 seconds and 93 miles per hour. In sanctioned drag racing, that 406 Fords were still too heavy to outrun some of those quicker Dodge, Chevys, and Pontiacs, so Ford decided to shave 164 pounds off this car. They offered aluminum bumpers. They put some fiberglass body panels on it. Still wasn't enough to make it a serious contender, and Ford found themselves continually on the back end in terms of competition. As far as the exterior styling went, far better than the Dodge. The front grille was a heck of a lot more stylish, at least in my opinion. I'd like to hear yours.
It is a little bit slower off the line. Obviously, you're not crossing as quick, but you're looking a hell of a lot better doing it. I really like it. The convertible, I don't usually go for the early 60s. Feel like it's a little bit of a purgatory of that kind of bubbly 50s style and then what would become what I like in the later 60s, around 66, 67. But that being said, I mean, this does kind of subscribe to that, but I really do like the taillights. Love the front end, and love it when it's a convertible. I mean, that's just a hell of a good-looking ride.
Yeah, my older sister had one for many years as I was a kid, or when I was a kid, and I remember growing up, I would get to cruise around and we'd go to the store and whatnot, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. And it just has a very memorable front end. You're definitely right about that. Original MSRP with this car was about, with the $390 option, was about $3,800. Now, if you recall a moment ago, we said earlier that the extra $390 would have been money well spent. Well, here's the reason why we say that. Today, if you would have spent that $390 in 1962, that would have increased your value today to $80,000 to $100,000. The
Hey.
base 62 is only worth about 11 grand. If you'd have spent that $390 55 years ago, today that would have equated to almost 100 grand.
Well, what is 390 in today's value?
That I don't know. I mean, I'd
Be curious to see.
yeah.
What is probably somewhere near 4,000?
I would think maybe, yeah. That's
In the-
probably-
just in the
probably
rough
a good
neighborhood?
guesstimate.
Yeah,
4 or 5
yeah.
grand, yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're talking, so that's exponentially.
Oh yeah. I actually, before we go any further, I had a quick question. Do you know why Galaxy is spelled IE instead of Y?
Instead of what, I have no clue.
Because I just feel like it'd be so much cooler if it was spelled with a Y.
Yep.
I don't
Because
know.
Galaxie IE kind of indicates pluralism, right?
Whatever it indicates, I just don't like the way it looks on paper. Even with
It's a
people's
misspell,
names who
yeah.
end in Y, if they
Right.
do IE, it's like, I mean, no offense to anybody who has an IE name, but just Y is so much cooler.
It just doesn't seem right. I 100% agree. But it's time for us to tell now, which car do you like between these two models and why do you like it?
Oh, hands down, it's the Galaxy because it looks way better. I mean, I do think it would be fun to have the Dodge and just smoke someone in an ugly looking bucktooth car, but sometimes you got to ride in style, and you're doing it in the Galaxy.
I'm going to go the opposite direction only because I want to hear from you folks out there which car you like. You're absolutely right. That Dodge model is hideous looking, but because it's so ugly, I'm going to roll with it. I like that car, but we need you to chime in here on our YouTube channel. Let us know which car you like. Today's Clash of the Classics, made possible by the largest automatic transmission network in the world. They are the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association, or simply the ATRA. With certified service providers all across America, it's easy to find peace of mind when it comes to transmission service and repair. Next time your car is having a transmission problem, head on over to atra.com to find an authorized transmission service provider near you. See you next week, folks.
Riding along in my automobile, my baby beside me at the wheel.